Welcome, Battle Royale tributes. This is a guide video for the game. The game of life or death. The game of survival. Okay, that's enough of that. There are 3 phases to a Battle Royale game. The first phase is you land and you have a mad rush to collect the guns that you need. The second phase is escaping from the other players and escaping from the danger of the clusterfuck. And the third phase is the final showdown. So, to begin, the first phase, while you're in your parachute, pick a good location for buildings. You need to get in and find a weapon. So if you get lucky, you'll get a shotgun and an assault rifle. I like to land in the Pleasant Valley housing estate because there's plenty of houses, lots of guns and equipment here. There's even a few cars, and if you need to, you can go into town to pick up a car after the first phase of the game. If it's not possible to land in one of the housing estates, then just trek towards one of the nearby buildings, and by the time you get there, hopefully the first crash of players will have ended. Be careful to avoid other players and plan it so that you can get the jump on people when they're near you, when they're nearby. Your loot priority, typically I go for a shotgun first, then an assault rifle, then a helmet and a backpack. After that, I will collect first aid kits for the final showdown. And bandages as well. You can actually use first aid kits at the same time as a bandage, and that increases the health regeneration. So there is a strategy regarding when to move and when to wait, and which gun to use depending on range. When you're at close quarters, you should use a shotgun. It has that insta-gib potential, and you can hear people. When you've got a gun and you hear another player near you, use the audio to locate them. You can actually move your character head around to get a better idea of their location and sort of pinpoint it. Use buildings to your advantage while searching for a car or first aid kits. You can also bait people into moving to you, or if you know where they are, you can rush them down, but I wouldn't recommend rushing them down. Don't feel bad about sitting and waiting, it works. So phase 2 of the game, you're going to want to look for a car and medkits. Every time you kill a player, you should try and loot them to try and get the medkits that they might have picked up. But your priority really is to get a car, get mobile. The car provides you with armor, and it's a good opportunity for you to jump out and gib players that you meet during the second phase of the game. So, regarding gunplay, I typically use the hipfire most often. It's worth aiming at longer ranges, but I still don't bother because if you get hit, you'll move slow anyway. When you aim down sights, you reduce the speed that your player moves at, the speed that your character moves at is reduced because you're aiming down sight. And if you get hit by an enemy, then you will be slower if you were aiming down sight than you would have been if you were just hip firing. So in terms of getting to cover after you've been hit, it's actually better if you were hip firing all along rather than aiming down sight. And aiming down sight doesn't give you any benefit of accuracy. There's no zoom in on the scope. So you might as well just it's the same dot that you're using to aim with, so you might as well just hip fire. When you're outside, listen for cars and stay near cover. This is quite important because the only way that you can survive an engagement with a player that's in a car is by using cover. Now, a lot of people have mentioned that there's a bit of a glitch at the moment. When you get out of a car, you're invisible for 3 seconds or so. I haven't found that to be the case, but regardless, the way that I use the cover in the game, players always exit the vehicle in the same location, and I know that I'm going to need a second or 2 to locate them after they get out of the car. So I always make sure that that location is, I have cover from that location that they would get out of the vehicle. If you notice, when you get out of the vehicle, you always get out on the left side about halfway down the vehicle, a foot away from the vehicle. It's always the same. There's a clip here where I show using this against another player and then using the defense to protect myself. I just use the cover of this hillside to so that I can return fire and get the kill.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Okay, so when you are outside and you are travelling around, it's quite a good idea to press T for third person, and then you can hold Alt and look around while you move. This lets you have better awareness whilst you're running around, especially when you're moving from cover to cover. I do tend to run across open ground. Sometimes it's just necessary. So okay, so back to the point. We landed in the city to get easy access to the critical supplies, so that we could get weapons, a backpack, a helmet, and first aid kits. But now we want to leave the town and wait for the gas phase. So this is the second phase. This is escaping the danger of other players and waiting for the crowd to thin out, because your goal is to survive. There's not as much to gain from thinning the crowd out yourself. You put yourself at risk, and you may not get to the end. It's been mentioned a couple of times that the gas phase should kick in faster. At the moment, by far, the longest phase of the game is phase 2. It could go on for anything up to half an hour or so before players are forced into a smaller play area and the final showdown can happen. Remember, if you get a car, you should lock it, use L, or you can lock it from the tab menu. Spark plugs are we treat spark plugs like an ignition key, so remember to take it out of the car when you get out. You can continue driving after you've taken the spark plugs out, and then when you get out of the car, obviously you have the key in your pocket at that point. I noticed that a lot of players don't collect fuel. Most of the vehicles that are in Battle Royale have a can of fuel in the trunk, and if you can keep your car for quite a long time, it's worth collecting the fuel from other vehicles. A little glitch that a friend told me this morning just before making this video, Redlines. He said that if you put bandages or first aid kits into the trunk of the vehicle and then use them from there, they'll actually heal the vehicle, and I'm sure that's a glitch or an exploit and you probably shouldn't abuse it, but regardless, until it's fixed, it is an aspect of the game. So take note of locations where you can hide the car or hide your character model from view whilst you wait for the final phase of the game. During the escape phase, during phase 2, when you're escaping the danger that other players represent, there are several tricks that are pretty useful. If you're being chased on foot, you can open a door, stand behind the door, wait for them to run through, and your shotty is your friend in this situation. But ideally I would move out of the city and check car locations to try and get one. A car is extremely valuable not only because of the movement that it provides, but the armor that it provides if someone starts shooting at you. If you do manage to get into a car, then you only really need to be worried about people tailing you, because you won't be able to stop and eventually you'll run out of fuel. So if you do have someone tailing you, I recommend that you remove the spark plugs from the vehicle and then head for a building with doors or possibly stairways, so that you can set yourself up to have the jump on players as they come in. If you are in the second phase of the game and you're escaping the danger, and you might see a car drive past you, don't shoot at it. There's a couple of reasons why you shouldn't shoot at it. First of all, it gives away your location. But secondly, if you shoot at the car and that player decides to come for you, you won't have any ammo left in your gun to kill the player. So it's far better to get near cover, wait and see whether the car sees you first, and if he decides to come for you, then you can just use the cover to gain some advantage on that player, and potentially you'll be able to use his car afterwards. If you haven't shot it, then the car isn't damaged. So quite often you'll find that players like to use the car as bait. It's very useful for this. In fact, I've used it myself. If you see a player who's not standing near cover, even if they are standing near cover, you can just get out and throw the car at them. And if they've begun shooting at the vehicle, they'll probably continue to shoot at the vehicle rather than breaking line of sight to you. So when you get out of the car, they'll probably be looking the wrong way, and you'll be able to pick up a very easy kill that way. It's a little controversial as to whether your player model renders or not, but as I mentioned before, if you are aware of where the enemy player is going to exit their vehicle, then you can make sure that there is cover between you and that player, which means that if their model doesn't render, it's less of an issue. So when you do reach the final phase of the game, the toxic gas closes in and severely reduces the playable area. During this phase, you can use a first aid kit and a bandage at the same time, and this will actually heal you in the gas. The gas ticks your health away at 1% per second, and the first aid kit repairs it at 1% per second. Additionally, the bandage will give you another 1% per second for 10 seconds, so you can actually heal up in the gas as long as you have the supplies to do so. The final phase is all about being careful. I mean, standard FPS techniques come in here. Use crouch and use prone. If you end up in a 1v1 and you've taken more damage than your opponent, hit prone. They might think that you're dead. They might ignore that you're there. It's a good opportunity for you to bandage and reload, and you might even hear them walking around near you, so you can pop up and execute them with the shotgun. Now remember, SOE are using Battle Royale as the playtest server, so it's free for the entire of the alpha phase of the game, and it's great fun. It doesn't consume any of the event tickets that you might find, that you might have found on the live server, and it's really worthwhile using the Battle Royale to get a handle on gameplay, to get used to the game engine, and to make yourself more competitive. Okay guys, that's been all. I'm in the process of making a part 2 and a couple of walkthroughs for Battle Royale, so be sure to check back here. If you like the video, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.